Welcome to Falcons Drip, your go-to source for Falcons news and draft coverage. I'm Thon Ray, founder and voice of Falcons Drip. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I'm joined by my co-host Kyle, and we will be talking about our favorite camp battles today.
I mean, it happens sometimes. Okay, so first we're going to start off with running back, which this one is less of a camp battle and more of a who gets more carries coming out of training camp. With Algier being now in his second year, I don't know if you can consider him a vet, but he did rush for over 1,000 yards. And then you got Bijan Robinson, who was taken 8th overall in this most recent draft out of Texas. He was considered one of the best players in the draft and possibly the most talented guy, but that positional value pushed him down to 8 to where the Falcons could get possibly the best player in the draft.
And it's kind of like Kyle said, it's like we expect all these guys, both of these guys and Cordell Patterson to play. And it's a matter of, okay, how many carries, how many touches will we be giving each of them? And can Tyler Algier force Bijan into more of a gadget slot receiving type role? We expect both of these guys to play a lot. It's just kind of a matter of like, okay, is how many touches is Bijan going to get as a true running back, and how much is he going to be, like I said, in a gadget type role? Because we have to remember too, Algier had 1,000 yards, and that's with him not getting a ton of work early on in his career. I mean, he didn't break. I mean, in most of these games, if you go and you look at his touches early on, 10, 6, 10, 13, 15, 16, 14, 10, 8, 8, 11, 10. And then at the end, it kind of really ramps up 17, 18, 20, 24. So he hit 1,000 yards without getting a ton of work early on in the season.
100%. He was a guy who just came in, and whenever the Falcons called his number, he was able to just step up and get it done. And with the Falcons having not a great receiving threat, the defense is focused on the run, and they loaded the box and they still couldn't stop it, which is really impressive, both for the offensive line and for him as a player. So it's exciting to see with Ritter now being the quarterback and an improved receiving core going into this next year.
And when you really look at it too, like if you look at Tyler Algier's average yards per carry through the last 7 games, going backwards, 5.6, 4.2, 4.1, 8.2, 5.2, 4.9, and 6.9. Like he was honestly firing on all cylinders, and that's why everybody's clamoring for Bijan, like to take Bijan in fantasy. Like I get it, but at the same time, Tyler Algier isn't just going to go away.
100%.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what these guys do, and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a show.
Yeah, that's a group. I've heard people compare them to Thunder and Lightning. One's do it everything back, and one's just this power back who's got a little bit of speed, got enough of everything you need to be a great running back, which he showed last year in Algier. And with that, you want to move on to cornerback?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Kyle said, the next position that we really like is corner, and not so much 1 and 2. We kind of know that AJ Terrell and Jeff Kuda have those solidified. Now it comes to cornerback 3 and beyond. And what could that possibly look like?
100%. There's so many guys in there with experience playing corner, whether it's your nickel corner, you're talking about your 4th corner, your 5th corner, even your 6th corner. You have Trey Flowers in there. You have Cornell Armstrong. You have Clark Phillips, who was just drafted in the 4th round. So you have all these guys who could possibly make a push for either anywhere from the nickelback spot to cornerback 6 on the roster. So that's a bunch of guys competing for limited spots. So it'll be really fun to see how this plays out.
D. Alford, Darren Hall, Mike Hughes. Like it's almost like feels like you can't stop naming them.
100%. There's so many guys that it's hard to remember who's all there, and some of these guys are unfortunately gonna get cut, even though they're great players who would make other rosters if they weren't on the Falcons.
And when you're looking at it too, like it's going to be interesting because versatility is huge. And some of these guys, depending on what the team thinks, like if they can or can't play on the inside or outside, like they may not make it. So I I don't know. Like I think a lot of these guys can do both, but you have a guy like Trey Flowers, who I've talked about in the past, and he's kind of like a tight end eraser. He's a big corner, 6'3", 200 pounds. And that's kind of what he did well, is kind of match up on tight ends. And I think he can do that better than anyone else that we have. But at the same time, like it's so everyone's so specialized. D. Alford is one of my favorites, but he's a little undersized. For me, he's my number one guy for the nickel job. I think he'll be like cornerback 3. But with that being said, like if they need a bigger body in there, they'd much rather go with Trey Flowers if it's a bigger nickel.
100%.
And
There's
that's not
some.
even to mention,
Oh, okay. I
and that's
think you
not even to
glitched out for
mention
a second.
like that's okay. And that's not even to mention Mike Hughes, right? I mean, he was a former first round pick. We brought him in for a decent amount of money. And I know they've talked about him and how high the expectations are. He can totally be, I mean, he's shown he has the athletic ability to not only be a nickel, but to actually could, I don't think he will. I don't think he will, but he totally could be a guy that could push Akuda.
Well, I don't think anyone is gonna take those cornerback 1 or 2 jobs from Okuda or Terrell. There's some guys who could push him to be better. But the main spots we're worried about are nickelback, who's gonna be there, but we're pretty confident that it's gonna be in solid hands with all the guys who are quality guys who are competing for this job.
Who who do you like? And I don't think, again, I don't think that he will be Akuda out, but I'm saying he has the athletic ability, and if Akuda were to show that he isn't what we're hoping him to be, and if he isn't the number 3 overall pick that he could be, then Mike Hughes has the ability to. Will he? I don't think so. I think, like kind of like you said, he's really competing for the nickel spot, or the second, the third outside corner.
Hmm. I like a bunch of guys, but I think D Offord's a good one. Obviously Mike Hughes is a solid one, former first round pick out of UCF. You have Trey Flowers, who you mentioned. I think Mike Hughes and Trey Flowers are kind of two I like. But it's hard to say because any of these guys could surprise you and win that job. Even Clark Phillips, who's a
Mm-hmm.
young rookie and who hasn't played an NFL snap, could possibly win it.
I mean, this regime loves Clark Phillips, and if we don't see Clark Phillips making an impact in 2023, I would not be shocked to see him going all out in 2024. The interesting thing about Clark Phillips is he played outside corner, but a lot of people kind of pencil him in as a slot guy. 108
Oh, you're
pounds.
cutting out.
Like people think he's going to have at 5'9", 5'10", 180 pounds, people think, oh yeah, he's gonna have to play in the slot. But the reality is he barely played in the slot in college. So and he might be one of those guys, because he's such a dog, and he's such a grinder in the tape and in the film room and in the weight room. Like he might be okay on the outside. So it's just this whole thing. It's really interesting to see how this is going to play out. I can't wait.
100%. With that, you want to move on to corner? I mean safety.
Yeah. So now we obviously know we brought in Jessie Bates to be the guy back there, right? He's supposed to be the field eraser. He's going to be sit in the back. of the in the deep middle and just take everything away. He also plays the run really well. He comes up, he fills, he does everything excellent. So we know he's the safety back there. Now the question is who's the number two guy? Because I know a lot of people point the finger and say, oh, it's going to be Richie Grant. He was a second round pick. He's got the pedigree, but I would not sleep on Jalen Hawkins just yet.
100%. Jalen Hawkins is a solid player who most years gets about 4 picks. Obviously won't kill you in the back end. He's not a perfect player, but he's closer to an average player than he is to an insanely below average player. While he still needs some improvement, he's still developing. He definitely has the talent to be able to be a starting safety, but I think his play style is too similar to Jessie Bates, as he's not that thumper who will get down and hit a guy like a Cam Chancellor type. And that's why I think Richie Grant has the advantage in this competition.
And it really depends on what this coaching staff is looking for. If they might rather have two guys, two kind of dependable guys, because I really like Richie and he's shown so many flashes of being amazing. And I think he actually has played better, like down closer to the line of scrimmage. But if that's not what Nielsen's looking for, then we will definitely see more Jalen Hawkins. I think if we're looking more for a guy who's going to play down in the box, um, we'll definitely see more Richie Grant, unless Richie kind of takes another big step forward, which he could. He's still developing. He's a year behind Jalen. We could see Richie Grant make a big push, and I'm not going to sleep on Jayhawk either. Jayhawk also has been getting better and better each year. It's very possible for Jayhawk taking the jump and Richie to kind of lag behind. So again, this is why this is our third choice. Well, one of our top five. I don't think we really have an order for this, but
Not
this is why
really.
it's so
There's so
interesting.
many good position battles.
Yeah. But this is what makes it so interesting is it literally this is going to be somebody who plays a lot, and these two guys are going to be pushing each other.
A
And we
thousand
talked about
percent.
nickel, right? Like there's a very good chance like one of these guys could be the nickel back.
100%. There's even talks, we've talked about it earlier in the offseason, of Trey Flowers possibly being a safety, as he's got the size, he's got the speed to be able to move over to safety if they wanted to. But right now most people see him as a corner. So he could be a part of this battle, but right now it seems like he's more so a part of the corner battle.
In if like when you look at the Saints, what they've done, a lot of times their nickel corners were previously safeties. Chauncey Gardner Johnson was a safety. Malcolm.
Malcolm Jenkins.
Thank you, Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins. He was a corner, converted to safety, then converted more to a box, a slot, nickel back. So, it'll be interesting. The next best defensive back will be the nickel back. It won't be, a safety, a corner. It's just going to be whoever's the next DB. That will be the person who plays there. So
100%. So with that, you want to move on to talking about left guard battle,
you
and
want to
this
do
is
left
an
guard? You want to do left
interesting.
guard or edge?
Let's start with left guard.
Okay.
Okay, and this is an interesting one as we just drafted a rookie in Matthew Bergeron out of Syracuse, and now we have also competing with Hennessy, who's played center, played guard. So it'll be interesting to see who takes it. Whoever takes it is probably gonna fit in well with four great interior run blockers. Four great run blockers. Why did I say interior?
Um, yeah, and Hennessy had his overall grade last year. PFF's grade was a 75.4, which is good. It's it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a dogfight. I lean towards I lean towards Bergeron being the starter. I just think he's, bigger, meaner, and there's a reason why we drafted him, traded up to draft him. And I think I've got some Hennessy bias where he really has been like the year before he was so meh. His freshman year, right? Freshman year, his rookie year, he was so meh, he was meh,
Hmm.
really wasn't great. Then the following year, he was like okay, and he ended up getting beat out by Dahlman, right? So it's tough for me to sit here and say, yeah, like Hennessy's the guy. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, but I think Bergeron's it.
Yeah, I
And
think you have to lean Bergeron, as most teams, if you're drafting a guy in the second round, you're expecting him to contribute immediately, whether it's
especially
in a backup role or as a starter somewhere.
especially if you're trading up for him.
100%. And it was early in the draft. It was 38, I believe.
Yeah,
Trading up from 43. So, um, not not light capital used for him.
mm-mm.
So with that, let's move on to Edge. Or do you have
I
anything
want to
else?
talk about Bergeron
Just
just
for a
really
minute?
quickly
Okay.
before we move on. Yeah, I think that one thing about Bergeron is we talked about him with John Vogel a couple weeks ago, and we mentioned this already, but I'll just bring it up again. Like everything that like his downside, like the things that made people go like, "Ooh, I don't know if he can play tackle in the NFL," is okay if you're a guard, right? Like his his ability to shift, his ability to move to stop a his ability to stop a speed rush, what that was kind of lacking. He got beat a couple times. His arms are shorter, but inside those things are okay. And so when you move him from tackle to guard, it hides his deficiencies, but also improves everything he's already good at. He's mean, he's nasty, he's physical. He moves really well for a guard. Um, so I think he's the guy. I know I
Yeah,
said that a
I
couple times, but
100% agree
you
with
could be
that.
surprised. Man, Hennessy might hold him off. We'll see. My money's on. If I had to bet, it would be on Bergeron though.
1,000%. Bergeron's just got the overall better athletic traits from what it seems like as of now, but it'll be an interesting battle to watch as Hennessy's not a bad player himself. He's at worst a quality backup interior offensive lineman in this league.
All right.
And with
So
that, you want to move on to Edge, where we'll talk a little bit
yeah,
about Arnold Ebiketie and maybe Bud Dupree competing for a possible
yeah,
starting spot.
yeah, and so the way they've talked about it is we're going to look at it as it's going to be Calais Campbell, Anyamata, Grady Jarrett, and those are going to be like the three down linemen. But at the same time, you have to talk about outside linebackers, right? And I know Calais Campbell has talked about playing an edge role. So I believe when we're in like a 4-3 front, Calais Campbell will be a heavy edge. So we're going to talk about as if it was a 4-3, who is going to be the other outside guy? If we're, who's going to be the edge rusher there? And there's a slew of guys that you can kind of bring up. You got Bud Dupree, like you said, Arnold Ebiketie, Lorenzo Carter. Um, I really like D'Angelo Malone, Zach Harrison, third round pick who we talked about a couple weeks ago. There's a lot that we can do there.
Yeah, 100%. But speaking of the stand-up, more of the typical outside linebacker type, I think we should exclude Zach Harrison, seeing as he's more of a developmental guy, and plus he's more likely to fit in as the backup to um a guy like a guy like Calais
Calais Campbell.
Campbell.
Hmm.
And with
Yeah,
that
that's
being said, the first two that come to mind are Bud Dupree and Arnold Ebiketie. Obviously Arnold Ebiketie is this young guy who burst on the scene, was great last year, And then Bud Dupree was a former first round pick, has had some solid years, has had some not so great years, but overall has been a solid contributor to all the teams he's been on. So overall an interesting guy to talk about. But I lean
Mhm.
towards Arnold Ebiketie due to the youth and the ability for improvement there, and the fact that he's just this guy who could turn into a superstar if you give him the chance.
And but Bud Dupree has been very solid. His sometimes his pass rushing numbers aren't there, but whenever he's been very solid against the run, and he's a very, very good athlete. He's not a guy. The problem is he was a first round pick, so a lot of people look at him at like, okay, here, he's going to come in and be like the guy, and that's just not who he is. He might be a solid number two, but that being said, he would be one of the best pass rushers on this team for the last couple of years. So
$100%.
you mix him in with AK and Carter, and now you got yourself a room. Now they did talk about D'Angelo Malone possibly playing more of like the weak side line, playing like weak side linebacker, like more of that kind of role where when we're playing like a 3-4 and our outside linebackers are two more edge rusher types. Did I break up? Am I
Oh,
breaking
you're
up?
still here.
Okay. And we walk down to a 3-4 and we got two more edge rushing types. We very well could see it be Dupree and AK. But I think they really like D'Angelo Malone because he is a freak athlete. His numbers are crazy at the combine. I think they like him as a weak side linebacker who can play back in a 4-3. And then if they need him to, walk him down. He's a versatile chess piece.
And I think that's what this defense is built on. They're built on guys who have a versatile body type. Look at Calais Campbell, Zach Harrison, and then you got certain guys who could mix inside and out. Look at like a Michael Walker. He came in as an edge at first, but now he's taking more of an inside role as he hasn't been very productive at edge. So they're deciding, hey, maybe he'll do better at this, but he can be versatile
I
and
think
come in
I
at
think
both.
I think he came in. I think Walker came in as a
Oh, was he an
linebacker.
inside?
Yeah. Well, he was an inside linebacker, but when he was at Fresno State, he played mostly inside, but he played a little bit of everything. I think he played D tackle at one point.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think he
Dang,
had
I didn't realize
like
that.
one, I think he had like one or two snaps there or something crazy.
That's funny, seeing as he's not that big of a guy that he shouldn't be playing D tackle, but
Yeah.
I guess all their D tackles were injured.
Yeah, I can't remember what happened, but um, and also too, there's going off of the versatility, like Caden Ellis can do those kinds of things.
100%. Caden Ellis is one who we expect to be like an inside linebacker who can either play edge or inside, but it's gonna be interesting to see how they utilize all these guys because there's so many guys in this room that could possibly get snaps.
Yeah, it's going to be again another great battle here. Um, it's again not just to be edge two, right, or edge one, depending on what you're considering Calais Campbell. We're talking about edge one, possibly two, three, four, and somebody's going to have to get cut. We haven't talked about uh, AO in this entire time at a combo Ogundeji, and we also haven't talked about the UDFA from Rice, Ikana at Etchinku. I can never say his name. Ikana and
And
Chuku.
then I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, was a really good player in college, and he was talked about getting drafted possibly in the early in day three, and he got pushed all the way out because of how deep this class was. So just going to be an awesome battle. I'm excited, but I would say right now I would agree with you. The primary edge would be AK, and then Bud Dupree maybe coming in and more run stopping downs, and then on the other side, I think as like the weak side linebacker, I lean towards it being D'Angelo Malone just because of how explosive he is and how much they've talked him up. But he would probably be the first guy out. Um,
I
if
think
that
a
makes any.
Caden Ellis might fill that role well,
I think Caden also have to be the one of the inside guys.
but he might be one of the inside guys. I think he could fill both roles well though.
Yeah,
So it's gonna be interesting to watch because there's so many guys that they gotta like move around their position and try to figure out
yeah.
where they fit best.
I mean, that alone is gonna be exciting. Not even like they're gonna try and get the best 11 guys on the field. I mean, we talked about cornerback safeties playing the nickel. Like this is gonna be really interesting to see how they divvy up these linebackers and edge positions.
100%. And with that, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, so just a couple of other things that we're not going to really get into, just to kind of keep an eye on is, tight end three. That's going to be an awesome battle. Obviously, you've got uh, Pitts, obviously you got Pitts and Johnny Smith, but then you've got Parker Hesse and uh, Fitzpatrick. Those guys are going to be like two blocking tight ends trying to make the roster. I don't know if both of them will. It's very possible. It kind of depends on what they want to do with Felipe Franks. So that'll be interesting. And then the wide receiver position. I mean, we've talked about it. It kind of feels like they got Drake London and Matt Collins.
You're
It'll be
cutting out.
interesting to see if any of these other guys. And we've got Scotty Miller's the third, but it'll be interesting to see if we get any of these other guys kind of pushing him or pushing Matt Collins and what they're going to do for 4 and 5 and possibly 6.
100%. There's so many good players. There's the wide receiver battles, the running back battles. It seems like most of the positions they've added guys to make it competitive and push these guys for their starting spots,
And
make
really
them
quick
earn it.
too, like fullback, we Keith Smith's awesome. He's amazing, and I think I've pretty much got him locked in to win the fullback job. But Clint Radkovich, who we brought in this year, is no joke. Last year, he was considered like one of the best. Well, 2 years ago, he's considered one of the best fullbacks coming out of college. And then I believe he tore his ACL in the preseason for the Packers, I believe. But
Yeah, and
anyway,
then I think the Falcons claimed him, put him on practice squad, then he eventually ended up on IR, I believe.
yeah, so I think we picked him up in the offseason, I think.
Yeah, it might have been off season, but I think he might have gotten put on the practice squad. It was either he got put on IR like immediately after getting claimed or he
So
was
either way
like
though, like
practice
if
squad.
he's fully healthy, I do expect Keith Smith to win, but he'll be somebody who's interesting to push Keith Smith as well as someone who I'd be willing to bet we keep him on the practice squad.
Yeah, he's one of my pretty much locks for the practice squad.
Mm-hmm. And that's another battle in itself. Like
Hmm.
there's so many it hasn't felt like this in so long, but there are so many good players on this team that like the last few years it kind of felt like, okay, we know there's 16 spots, we knew who 10 of them were going to be on the practice squad. This
Hmm.
year legitimately like there's 16 guys that are going to be on, and I couldn't sit here and say definitively this is going to be one of them. I think Clint will be, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Because there's so many guys competing for it. It'll be interesting to see if one of the guys like Ade, who most people think is going to get cut, gets added to there, even though he's considered to be on the way out in the edge room.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, thank y'all for listening, and
Rise up.
Again, this is Thon Ray. You guys can follow us at Falcons_drip on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Please make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever you need to do to get the alert for our next episode. If you guys enjoyed today, please leave us a review. It always helps us grow. Until then, see you next time. Rise up.